Now on BBC One with a time at 6:25, the news with Moira Stewart.
The headlines this evening. The Labour Party's deputy leader, Roy Hattersley, says the party's heading for its most momentous week for a decade and is now set fair for government. Mr. Rafsanjani gets the backing of the Iranian president, but the Palestinians reject his calls to kill Westerners. And Liverpool go through to the FA Cup final 3 weeks after Hillsborough. Good evening. Roy Hattersley has claimed that the coming week is crucial to Labour's chances of winning the next general election. Labour's National Executive Committee meets tomorrow and Tuesday in the wake of the Vale of Glamorgan by-election victory to vote on the proposed modernisation of the party's programme. A row over defence is certain.
Aware that the policy reviews contain some fundamental shifts unpalatable to many activists, party leaders have been preparing for tomorrow's crucial NEC by arguing that power is now within the party's grasp.
We all know what Labour must do to win, and we know from the Vale of Glamorgan that we can't any longer take refuge in the comforting inevitability of being in opposition. We can win the next election. All we have to do is want to win it enough.
Since 1982, unilateral nuclear disarmament has been official conference policy. Mr. Kinnock was once a firm unilateralist. Now he wants to place Britain's nuclear weapons in multilateral negotiations. If the talks failed, Labour would keep Trident. Transport leader Ron Todd took part in the review, but has rejected the plan, and the left's ready to fight all the way to the autumn conference.
The argument and the logic is on our side, and people, I think, will see this is nothing to do with strategic defence planning or serious approach to politics. It's simply looking at the opinion polls and trying to shuffle your policies around to match what the popular opinion is.
A small group of NEC members who are normally loyal to Mr. Kinnock are expected to join with the left and vote in favour of retaining the policy of ridding Britain of all nuclear weapons in the lifetime of a parliament. Mr. Kinnock is expected to win that vote on Tuesday, though by a narrower margin than he normally commands.
The Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Ali Akbar Rafsanjani, has received the indirect backing of the current President, Ali Khamenei, in his own bid for Iran's presidency. On Friday, Mr. Rafsanjani called on Palestinians to kill Westerners in response to their treatment by Israel. The PLO has accused him of giving poisoned advice. Today's backing of Rafsanjani appears to mark a further hardening of attitudes in Iran.
Mr. Khamenei's comments coming 48 hours after Mr. Rafsanjani's call for Palestinians to kill Westerners are being seen as further evidence that moderate opinion in Iran has been largely silenced. Mr. Khamenei has little grassroots support, but he's thrown the weight of his office behind Mr. Rafsanjani, the man most likely to succeed him after presidential elections later this year. The call to murder Westerners has outraged many in the outside world, including representatives of Palestinian opinion.
Palestinians will not at all regard what Rafsanjani had asked them to do as serious. It's ridiculous, and besides that, the Iranians do not have any kind of influence on the Palestinians. It's PLO that is leading the intifada.
But whatever the reaction of the Palestinians themselves, the Iranian radicals who call the shots in Tehran show every sign of approving of their leader's tactics, however isolated it leaves their country.
Israeli troops have found the body of a paratrooper who'd been missing for 3 months. He's believed to have been kidnapped by Palestinians. And the Prime Minister, Yitzhak Shamir, has been strongly criticized by the country's hardline Trade Minister, Ariel Sharon. He described the government's failure to put down the Palestinian uprising in the occupied territories as Israel's biggest blunder to date. But Mr. Shamir blames the continuing violence on the Palestinians themselves.
The uprising are interested to escalate it because they are not interested in our peace initiative. They are not interested in any peace.
In the Lebanese capital, Beirut, 20 people have been killed and 50 injured in the latest bombardments. Residents have been assessing the damage following shell fire in the past 24 hours, which has wrecked the Arab League ceasefire. Both Christian and Muslim artillery units have inflicted serious damage on the city's residential areas, as well as neighbouring towns and villages. The IRA has carried out 2 bomb attacks, injuring 9 soldiers in Northern Ireland. The first bomb exploded near Crossmaglen in the South Armagh border area. Within 4 hours, there was a second explosion just a few miles away near Newry, injuring soldiers on a mobile patrol.
In the first attack, an army Land Rover was blown across the road by an IRA bomb planted near to a derelict house. 5 soldiers were injured and airlifted to hospital by helicopter, but none of them was seriously hurt. The explosion, though, shattered windows in homes hundreds of yards away. The second attack was almost identical, less than 4 hours later and just a few miles further north. This time, the IRA detonated a bomb left in a hedgerow to hit the last Land Rover in a passing convoy. 4 soldiers were slightly injured, the army again lucky to escape with only minor casualties. It comes at the end of a week in which the IRA have stepped up their attacks in South Armagh, killing a soldier last Thursday and taking advantage of considerable troop movements in the area as the army try to carry out a major programme of building work on their border observation posts.
Liverpool will meet Everton in what's bound to be an emotional Merseyside FA Cup final at Wembley in 2 weeks' time. This afternoon they beat Nottingham Forest 3-1 in the semi-final that was replayed because of the Hillsborough disaster.
A dignified welcome for Liverpool at Old Trafford. These fans, largely from Nottingham, appreciating the club's decision to go ahead with the semi-final. Crowd control was intensive, but designed for safety rather than the suppression of hooliganism. In a somewhat subdued atmosphere, some fans were still demonstrating their respect for those who died at Hillsborough. The crowd capacity was set at 50,000, but the 2 clubs between them have returned 12,000 tickets. Live television and the cost of watching football has doubtless played its part, but it's also believed that many who were at Hillsborough simply won't risk bringing back the bad memories. The teams came out 15 minutes behind schedule to allow latecomers into the ground. They were present for the day's most sombre moment. From then on, it was like any other semi-final, urgent and robust with the added benefit of an early goal. It went to Liverpool. Barnes shot, beaten out by Sutton, but only as far as Aldridge. Yet Forest hung on, and then in the 33rd minute, scored from their first sustained attack. Webb's shot, seen late by Grobbelaar. The ball had crossed the line. Webb celebrated an unlikely equaliser. But the second half belonged entirely to Liverpool, who regained their lead just after the hour. Aldridge, once more the scorer, the man who'd said he might never kick a ball again after Hillsborough. The conclusive third came from the Nottingham fullback Brian Laws, the only gift of an otherwise competitive match.
For many of the Liverpool fans, the thought of packing onto the Old Trafford terraces after what happened in Sheffield was a disturbing prospect. But among those who felt they had to be there was Ian Clark, who had both his legs crushed at Hillsborough.
Before most Liverpool games, Ian Clark dons his lucky red shirt. Lucky because, he says, Liverpool never lose when he wears it to a match. And lucky because he was wearing it when he was pulled from the crush at Hillsborough. Outside Old Trafford, Ian confronted some of his fears.
The way I feel at the moment, I've got to come back after what I've been through. And it's probably one of the only ways I can sort of get back to normal.
It was a game many said Liverpool had to win for the 95 who died, and the 3-1 victory over Nottingham Forest was a result that may help ease some of the city's grief.
I feel a lot better than what I did beforehand, but it was expected. It was just the result where we had to win.
Any worrying moments when you were there?
Walking down the steps and seeing the fences all over again. That was quite worrying. Just glad to be back with the crowd again.
With the hurdle of this extended semi-final behind them, Ian Clark and the rest of the Liverpool fans looking forward to the cup final at Wembley.
Ayrton Senna has won the Monaco Grand Prix in Monte Carlo. The defending world champion and his McLaren teammate Alain Prost ran away with the race from the start around the twisting street circuit. They were never caught, British interest centred on a battle for third and fourth places between Nigel Mansell in a Ferrari and Martin Brundle's Brabham. But Mansell's race was cut short when gearbox trouble forced him to retire. Brundle later had his own problems, but recovered to finish in 6th position. But the sight of a McLaren finishing in front is becoming a familiar one. Senna's victory today is the team's 3rd successive win at Monte Carlo. Cricket, the Australian tourists have been enjoying the sunshine as they prepare for the Ashes series against England, which starts next month. Today they were at Arundel in Sussex to play their traditional match against the Duchess of Norfolk's 11.
10,000 people turned out to enjoy the rare combination of perfect summer weather, an idyllic setting and a chance to size up the much publicised Australians. Their batsmen certainly rose to the occasion. David Boone led the early attack. With none of the current test bowlers to trouble him, he made it all look too easy and went on to make an unbeaten 114 before retiring. The loss of an early wicket brought on Tom Moody, who stepped up the pace, scoring 73 with a rapid succession of boundaries before he was stumped, a little too overconfident. The Australian captain Alan Border maintained the impressive display with a rapid 66 before he was caught on the boundary. But of course it was all very different from a test match, and the England captain remained characteristically relaxed.
When we get to what we might call the real stuff, then I think the whole thing will change somewhat. But so far the Australians look very relaxed and in quite good form, to say the least. The ball's been disappearing all morning to most parts of the ground, so they'd obviously be quite happy with the way it's going for them at the moment.
Steve Waugh took the Australian total to 314 for 6 off 50 overs. Their supporters were revelling in the performance and already predicting future.
We're going to win. Take the Ashes all the way back to the Antipodes.
And the latest score, the Duchess of Norfolk's 11 were 150 for 4 in reply. That's it for now. The main news tonight is at 9:10.
Good evening to you. Well, you're going to play cricket anyway today, I should think. It's some splendid weather across the whole country, and the temperatures reflecting that. The highest I've seen was Dundee, 23 degrees, and that was warmer than it was in Monaco for the Grand Prix, but I don't suppose we'll ever see a Grand Prix in Dundee. Now, tomorrow I think temperatures a couple of degrees lower in Scotland, a couple of degrees higher in England and Wales, and Northern Ireland just about the same. We've still got this large area of high pressure covering much of Western Europe. That's good news because it's bringing virtually clear skies to the country. One or two patches of cloud up in the far north of Scotland now, and there is a little bit of drizzle and rain up in the Northern Isles. That'll make further progress southwards into northern Scotland as the night goes along. Turning misty in one or two rural parts further south, with a few fog patches developing around about dawn. Perhaps a ground frost as well, with temperatures here and there down to about 4 degrees. Tomorrow, though, the mist and fog soon clearing away, bags of sunshine to come once again, but there will be that rain up in the far north. That'll make progress in towards Northern Ireland, into central Scotland as well, during the course of the afternoon, with brighter, showery weather following behind. But those are the temperatures. A splendid day. 22 is 72.